You can't start the car. Johnny has the keys.
Greetings, hello, and welcome out there in podcast land. You have reached Johnny Has the Keys, a podcast about horror, science fiction, two old friends who discuss things that influenced the movies and what came after the movies that was influenced by them. If you are new to us, welcome, and glad you guys found us, and hopefully you'll like it and tell all of your friends and come back and see us. If you are returning listener, watcher on our YouTube channel, thank you so much. We appreciate you continuing to watch us. My name is David, and I'm here with my good friend Tim. Hey, Tim, how are you?
Hey, David, I am doing well.
Well is good.
Yeah, it's good to see you. What's
Yeah.
going on in your world this week?
What is going on in my world? Absolutely nothing. Nothing.
Wow.
It has been a crazy busy week on a bunch of other stuff and friends in and family in and everything. And I have had no time to do anything. So for this week, I have to sadly report I have no really incredible genre things out there that I've done. I've increased my list. Even in non-genre stuff. I now want to see the Trial of the Chicago 7, the movie that Sorkin did. I've got to see it and a couple of other things.
You know, I watched I think it was an HBO version of that with you when it came out, another version in like the 80s.
Yes. Yeah, I still have that. And it was called the same thing, Trial of the Chicago 8. It was called Conspiracy Trial of Chicago 8, I think.
I thought it was Chicago 7.
Chicago 7, sorry.
Yeah.
Chicago 7.
And because we were all learning about Abby Hoffman and all these other people.
Yeah. And it was well done. It was done with like no walls on the sound stage. It was done like the courtroom had, was really very theatrical.
Who was that? I mean, who was responsible for that? I barely remember.
That was an HBO production. I'm trying to remember who wrote it or who directed it because it was really good. I probably still have the VHS of that from ancient
I was going to say,
ago.
I saw it with you. I remember watching it with
you. That one, and there was another one they did along the same line that was called Missiles of October, which was all about the missiles with JFK and everything else. William Devane played
Kennedy.
Joseph Kennedy. He was great.
He looks like Kennedy. I remember he's played Kennedy more than once, I think, too.
Yeah.
I think he's done a bio as well.
Yeah. But yeah, everybody look that one up because the Sorkin one, I wonder, once I watch it, I'm wondering if it's taken from that previous adaptation, because it was very well done and taken from the court transcripts and everything. And I seem to remember a couple of the people in the cast, like not Hoffman, but one of the defendants is the guy from Carradine from Nerds. Revenge of the Nerds.
I get them all confused. It's not.
Yeah,
Keith.
he was in it.
It's
no,
not.
It wasn't Keith, but it was.
There's so many of them.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, I can't even remember the dad's name.
Everywhere.
John is the dad.
Yes. Yeah. But what about you? What have you been doing?
Well, I have been catching up on a lot of stuff. But mainly, I wanted to mention something. A few weeks back, one of our viewers / listeners named J.R. Jordan sent me a copy of a book he wrote. Actually sent you one as well.
Yep.
On Robert Wise.
Yes.
Now, we have talked about Robert Wise. The name of this book is Robert Wise, The Motion Pictures. You can buy it on Amazon. I highly recommend it if you're a Robert Wise fan. It is very, very detailed. I have not had a chance to read the entire book, but I read the movies that I've seen or that we've covered on this podcast. You and I both have called Robert Wise an American treasure in the past, and there is a reason for that. I mean, he did a plethora of great films, starting way back in the Val Lewton days. He did The Body Snatcher in the 50s. He did
Day the Earth Stood
The Day
Still,
the
the
Earth
best
Stood
science
Still.
fiction film ever made. Just saying.
He did The Day the Earth Stood Still in 1960. He did West Side Story. Right after that, he did The Haunting. Right after that, he did Sound of Music. And then he went on into the 70s. But he also did The Andromeda Strain, which is another film that we have covered.
And Star Trek: The Motion Picture.
And Star Trek: The Motion Picture, which is
essentially the reboot of Star Trek.
Yeah, and I think that kind of killed him because he only did 2 movies after that, and they were 10 years apart. And from what I understand, I mean, I read a lot. Roddenberry had a lot to do with that, and that's why they brought Bennett on, and Roddenberry never produced again because he kind of ran that production long.
Yeah,
and spent a lot of money.
Yeah, and it does, as much as I dislike that as one of the Star Trek films, it does have some great cinematography to it. It has some great direction. I just think he was kind of out of his league trying to make it what he had done best in the past. I've said before, the Andromeda Strain is probably the best, quote, science fiction film ever made because it is a great adaptation of the book and it's a total science fiction piece. It's plausible sort of thing. And I think he tried to add a lot of that to Star Trek, and Star Trek really wasn't totally that,
Yeah, he admitted to everybody, I don't know what Star Trek is.
Right.
And his wife had died like 10 years prior or so. And his new wife was a fan. And that was when Nimoy was the one holding out. And she was like, you cannot do this without him. They've got a thing.
They got a thing and you kind of need him. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. But the book is great. Gavin MacLeod, who's done a few films with him, does the introduction. There's lots of really interesting little tidbits about films that I didn't know, or had forgotten. Back when Turner was colorizing everything, Wise is one of the ones that said no when he tried to do The Haunting, because The Haunting was filmed in black and white on purpose, and he had something in his contract that said this film's only allowed to be shown as it was originally made.
Good.
Or intended. So he was smart enough to do that as well. And there's lots of juicy tidbits behind the scenes of West Side Story too, which is also one of my favorite movies that's non-genre if you don't
I
know
agree.
musicals.
And it's and Spielberg's doing the new version, so that'll be interesting.
I know.
But
a little worried.
So what's the name of the book again? Name and author?
About that. So
yeah.
But anyway,
what's the name of the book and the author again?
I just wanted to give a little plug to that.
Good. And what's the name of the author again in the book?
J.R. Jordan.
Perfect. Cool. So everybody run out and get that because you heard it here on Johnny Has the Keys. If you're a Robert Wise fan.
He heard us and sent us a copy, and I'm super hyped about it. So
yeah, that's awesome. We love presents. So
yeah, especially books.
Well, speaking of books, we are covering a movie today that's based on a book, a very a sequel book. But also one that kind of like what we were just talking about. Also one that struggled or had the challenge of being part of movie history as well, just like West Side Story, Sound of Music, all of that. So. What is it?
Well, what we're doing is our third Stephen King film.
Yes.
We did 2 last year. We did Misery and we did The Shining. So why not follow it up with a very another controversial movie, the sequel to The Shining, directed by Mike Flanagan. Is it Mike? Yeah, Mike Flanagan.
Yep.
And it is called Dr. Sleep.
Dr.
I will put up a little background there for you.
Oh, look, there's Dr. Sleep himself.
Yeah, right there we have a grown-up version of Dan Torrance. Of course, somebody playing Dick Halloran that looks a lot like Scatman Crothers. This movie is about the young Dan Torrance grown up, 30 years, almost to the day from when the original Shining came out. He is an alcoholic like his father, and he has hit rock bottom. He meets a friend, starts all over, and comes in contact with a young girl who has, or is he? And through this, that there is a group of, I don't know how to describe it, psychic vagabonds out there that feed on people with the Shining in order to retain their immortality. And so they're like psychic vampires, for a lack of a better word. And he comes to realize that the girl is in danger and that he needs to help her because Halloran helped him when he was a child. And they end up having to go back to a slightly iconic place to defeat these guys. So I'll leave it at that. What did you think of this movie, David?
I'll preface it with spoiler alerts, because we always should preface that, because we do spoil everything because we talk about it.
And it is one of the newest
details.
films we've done, too.
If you haven't watched it, go watch it. I would recommend that you actually watch The Shining before you see it, because just to see the amazing recreations. What did I think of this movie? I actually really, really enjoyed this movie. I really liked it. I thought, but then again, you know that I'm a Mike Flanagan fan. I just finished Bly Manor a few weeks ago. You and I did the entire, each episode of the podcast for Haunting of Hill House. I liked Hush, his other one that he did. It's on my list. I have not seen Hereditary.
That's not him.
Oh, okay. Who's that one? That's the other guy.
Ari Aster?
Ari Aster.
I think it's Ari Aster.
But I liked it on so many levels. I really liked it from the production, behind the stage, directing, writing, because Flanagan wrote, directed, and edited this movie all by himself. So that's pretty amazing. And what I liked about it was the challenges that he had to do. He had an extremely popular book that was turned into an extremely popular movie, but they weren't the same thing. The author didn't like the movie. He then was making a sequel based on the book, which was a sequel to the novel,
which ends completely differently with some characters.
Had to keep the cinematic people happy, so he had to marry it together. And from what I've understood, he got King's blessing after it was over. I mean, King liked the film.
Oh yeah. Almost feels a little vindicated by it.
And I'm sure we'll go into detail about reasons why, or the pluses and minuses of it. But I really, really enjoyed it and was upset I hadn't seen it earlier, honestly.
On a big screen.
It has so much good stuff going for it in this movie. I think it is. Do I think it's a horrific, scary, jump out of your seat horror movie? No. But I think it's creepy, scary, cool, and a good horror movie in general. Mm-hmm. What about you? Because you're the, if you are the King aficionado, so.
I really like the book, and I really like the movie. Like you, I'm a big Mike Flanagan fan. I mentioned in a podcast not too long ago, the Jaws podcast, that rarely is a movie better than a book. And I said Jaws is a good example. Mm-hmm. And I almost want to say the same about this. I want to say this movie might be better than the book.
And I have not read the book, so unfortunately I have to say that. I'm coming to it just as a movie watcher.
Well, and I'm sure, I don't want to, I'm not putting King down because I think he's a great writer. The book was fine, but I think the added element of the Kubrick movie is what lifts this film so much higher. That, the music, the editing, I mean, you know, the heartbeat, all the stuff from The Shining that made it scary is in this movie too.
Mm-hmm.
And even though, you know, Halloran lives in the book and the hotel is destroyed, you still have Halloran in this film. They just play him as a, you know, a ghost, or not,
perfect.
you know, or just the psychic connection, and it works perfectly.
It's perfect.
Perfectly.
Great idea.
Yeah. The lookalikes they cast for Wendy and Jack are great, even though Jack's obviously a ghost because he's dead.
Oh, and Danny, the young Danny looks great too. The lookalike.
Casting for flashbacks,
casting for this entire movie is great. I'd read bad things about McGregor, and I actually liked him in this. I thought he was
he's
fine
fantastic.
as Danny. Yeah. Mm-hmm. But I had read people who said, oh, so miscast and not good and yada, yada. But I thought he was great. Halloran is almost perfect. He is a great, and I love the girl that does Wendy and how she keeps that same kind of inflection. Don't ever run from me again, Danny. That kind of real flat tonality.
Oh, Doc, what's the matter?
Doc. Yeah. Okay, bud.
I think, I mean, the book to me was great. Another thing that's really strong about Flanagan is that he, and this is probably why he directed, wrote, and edited it, is he was determined to make everybody happy. He wanted Stephen King to like this film. He wanted the Kubrick estate to like this film. And he knew it was a lot on his shoulders. And that was the challenge he took.
Yep.
And it was, I think he pulled it off beautifully.
Yeah, I mean, that alone should merit cinephiles wanting to watch this movie because of just how it sets a precedent for being able to marry these two distribution methods and these two images. I mean, people, I remember, when we talked about The Shining, I remember reading The Shining, having all this in my mind. And then I saw the Kubrick movie and I went, okay, I really appreciate that movie as a Kubrick movie, as a horror movie, as what it is, but it definitely ain't the book.
And
then I remember the mini series thing that they did on ABC or whatever. And I was going, okay, this is how not to do a book. You know,
I didn't like the cast of that was just not right. That little boy, I wanted to kill that little boy.
I'm glad he made the decision not to be too Kubrick. Not to try to recreate Kubrick or try to recreate the photography style or anything else. Instead, he homages it very well in Dan's memories of what it was like back then, and which was great. It was just a brilliant idea. Well, we usually start with I don't want to go to favorite scenes until after like casting because we talked about it a little bit.
Well, we talked a little bit about Mike Flanagan. He obviously did Hill House, Bly Manor more recently. You mentioned Hush, Before I Wake, and Oculus.
Well, he did Gerald's Game too, right?
He did. Gerald's Game was his first Stephen King movie. This is his second Stephen King movie. And right now he's adapting Revival with an option to direct. And Revival is a Lovecraft homage, which is
really
wild. Yeah, Stephen King wrote it. It's a full-fledged cosmic horror novel. So
interesting.
Yeah, I'm really curious. I hope he continues with it. He also, I forgot to write down the name of it, and I keep forgetting, but he has another series coming on Netflix too, another horror series. It should be airing soon because it filmed, I think, before Bly Manor. So, but anyway, so Mike Flanagan, Stephen King penned this. This movie was ripe with controversy to begin with for reasons we just explained. But then again, the former movie was ripe with controversy because of the fact that King hated it and butted heads with Stanley Kubrick over it. So it's kind of interesting, I think, that the sequel was almost as controversial as the original.
Yeah, I think so. I haven't I haven't heard a lot of negative about it though. People that I've read or talked to who have seen it really liked it.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
I mean, I've seen some negative reviews out there, but I don't hear a lot of hate on it.
Okay.
No.
What are the negative reviews about? About derivative or about what? What are they saying? Do you remember?
You know, I really can't remember, David. I was looking when I was doing a little bit of research on this, and now I can't.
Yeah, I would just be curious because to me, there are so many good things about this film.
It is. Did you watch the director's version?
No, I haven't seen that yet.
Okay. Because it is a little bit longer, and this is a long movie. The movie's a 2.5 hours without the director's cut. The director's cut's 3 hours. So
Right.
that may have been what was negative. People may think it moves too slow. I don't know.
Interesting. I think it kind of had to. Although I will say a criticism I did have at the beginning was the location shifting got very confusing because I didn't know any of the characters. And suddenly we're in Iowa. And then suddenly we're in New Jersey. And then we're over here. And then we're over here. And he kept bringing up the little location. I want to say X-Files, but you know what I mean? In the corner, the little chyron kept coming up, the little subheading saying we're in Ames, Iowa, or whatever else. And I didn't know any of these characters. So suddenly switching all these locations, I was going, plus the fact that they were all traveling. So I was going, okay, wait, this is the same character, but now they're in a different place. I'm kind of losing it a little bit. And I found that a little confusing.
When Stephen King wrote the book, he got the idea because he drives from Maine to Florida several times a year because he has houses in Sarasota and in Bangor. I think it's Bangor. Yeah.
Yeah.
And he started getting the idea by passing rest stops and thinking, what if a bunch of vampires were hanging out there, or a bunch of, gypsies or whatever that were killing people were hanging out? And that's how he came up with the idea.
In the RVs. That makes sense. Yeah.
Right. Plus, people had been asking him for years, what happened to little Danny Torrance? And he said he would tell people that he married Charlie McGee and they had superhero children. Which I thought was funny. And this is part of an interview that is on the DVD that I watched with him and Flanagan together. Because King loves the movie. And he feels a little bit vindicated because they do blow up the hotel in the end, which is how the first one was supposed to end. So,
well, I also think he should feel vindicated because the characters in it become, to me, more well-rounded. The Overlook characters, the ghosts of the Overlook, essentially, the spirits, the whatever, become much more similar to the book in feel and in like presence in this, as opposed to Kubrick's. I mean, Kubrick's was basically, we talked about it in the podcast. It was basically a descent into madness. We were really on the edge of, is Jack imagining this or not, until we finally tip over at the end. And even then, it's still Jack as the villain. He's the bad guy. Grady doesn't feel threatening or like a bad guy. In this, he does. And so do the little girls. And so does, Jack, essentially. Because he's become part of it. So I think he should feel vindicated. And the Overlook itself becomes this presence. I mean, Flanagan obviously loves it. And the way that just that whole sequence of them stopping for gas first and him going, not too long now, just up the hill, and they show that shot of them up the mountain, and then when they both stand there and look at it and it's all boarded up and dark and everything else. And he says, I'll go in alone. She says, no. And he goes, oh yeah, I have to wake it up. And I was going, oh yeah, this is, it was great for that last act.
Yeah.
That was such a great, and then him roaming through it and getting all of those. I mean, we were having our own flashbacks as viewers. He didn't have to go back and show us scenes from the original movie. We knew it. We were there. We were.
It was so cool when he did.
Oh yeah, we were going. Don't come around that corner. Don't come around that corner. Don't come around. Oh, good, they're not there. Okay, whatever. It was real, but showing things like the candelabra slowly lighting as Danny walk toward them and everything.
Mhm.
So he's literally bringing the hotel to life. It was really good, smart choice.
Right. I thought so too. For those of you out there that have only seen the movie and not read the book, they do still go to the Overlook in the end, but it's the structural ruins of it. So they're basically fighting outdoors with these vampires, for lack of a better word, but the ghosts are still there too, because it's the ground, not necessarily the hotel.
Oh,
So,
okay.
Yeah.
See, I would find that disturbing if I was reading the book. I was going, okay, if you burn it down, doesn't it destroy the spirits? But evidently not, according to King.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, I'm it's been a long time since I read the book, but I seem to remember the ghost still being there. Something was still there. It was bad. It was like Pet Cemetery. It was like sour ground. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But anyway, so that's another reason why I say the movie may be a little bit better than the book, because you do get to go back to the hotel. It is still there.
Yeah.
So, before I move on to casting, did you want to bring up anything else as far as scenes? There's so many.
I mean, there's so many, and there's so much good stuff to it. I do think another, I guess, not criticism, but feeling I got from this, it does feel at times like an episode of The Haunting, or like Haunting. It's Flanagan has now developed, I think, his own kind of style, and it's starting to show, which is good. I don't have a problem with that. But it's not, in comparison to Kubrick, there's just a vast difference. But, and I guess this is kind of a criticism of more King than Flanagan. A lot of this story to me felt like The Outsider. And I started thinking, did he write this at the same time? I mean, you got a baseball kid who's abused and killed.
Oh, yeah.
You got these kind of creepy, vagabondy monster that you never knew about could ever exist before. And it's kind of psychically connected to certain people. And I was going, did he write these at the same time?
Really close. This was written first or published first. The Outsider came out a few years later. So,
but I definitely got an outsider vibe to this.
I could see that. I hadn't really thought about the baseball kid, and talk about harrowing, man. That scene. Whoa.
That was great. That was great. I read a bunch of stuff about, there's child endangerment and da 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 da, and I'm like, yeah, and it works. And it's supposed
that
to.
That kid is like one of the hottest child actors in Hollywood right now, and he was in the movie that Mike Flanagan directed called Before I Wake, which I think I told you need to watch.
Yes.
That kid is awesome, and the woman that played Rose the Hat, who is the main villain. Yeah.
Cannot say enough good.
She's like a star, man. She is going places big time.
Well, I remember her because as soon as she appeared in her first scene, I was going, who is this? Who is this? Who is this? Who is this? And it took me like the third scene to remember that she's Jenny Lind from Greatest Showman. And I love her character in that. And I love her in that. And exact opposite of this. Well, she's a villain in that too, by the way. But anyway,
she doesn't like horror movies, and she was really opposed to like child violence or whatever. But she said that for this and for Stephen King, she could do it. And she talked about, she said, this pin in my hat, she's got that long hat pin. She said it goes under children's fingernails because it purifies the steam.
Perfect.
Yeah, she's great. But anyway, that kid, when they were filming that scene, no one knew how strong this kid was going to be, except for Flanagan, who had worked with him before. So when he turned it on, he said some of those actors were literally shaking when they walked away. And he said the kid would just hop up and high five his dad and go over to get something to eat.
Yeah, go to craft services and have a sandwich. Yeah.
Meanwhile, they're all, traumatic because they've been murdering the.
Yeah, we just
a Coca-Cola.
Mutilated this child, and yeah.
So
I think the movie needed that. I think it had to have that. The first abduction and death of the girl was kind of like, we're concerned, but there's not a visceral investment in what these things are. And I think he really needed that so that we would see them as they're not just shadowy figures at the edge of the woods. They are villainous,
they
cruel.
are, yeah. And before we move into casting, that's another thing I wanted to ask you. What did you think of that storyline as opposed to all the Shining elements? There's a whole new storyline with this traveling group that preys on children.
Yeah. And in research a little bit, I found out their name is True Knot, although I never thought I got that in the movie. I don't remember hearing that ever in the movie.
They definitely say it in the director's cut. I don't know if that got moved out or not.
Okay. In my version, I don't remember them ever saying that. I could easily watch a prequel to this and see some of their stories. A big key for me, I'll go ahead and say it, a big key for me was Near Dark. It reminded me of Near Dark with all of the varying ages of people and ethnicities, and they're a collective that's joined over the literally thousands of years, joined this pack. I think it would be interesting if King, and maybe King, because he ties so many things together in all of his works anyway, it'd be interesting if one of the books of the Outsider series was her encountering the True Knot, encountering this cult, this group of monsters, as opposed to the monster that's in the Outsider. I think it would be interesting to see her try to fight them.
I would love to see a Holly Gibney series. That would be awesome. HBO's redoing it. Doing another one that's based on a novella that he wrote in another novel called If It Bleeds. And I just currently finished the first 2 seasons of Mr. Mercedes, and the woman playing Holly Gibney in it is great too. She is not African American, and she looks younger, but gosh, she's good too. I was like, wow, both of them kind of nail it really well.
But yeah, I loved the little bit I got from all of them, from the Chunk Guy and Grandpa Flick, Crow Daddy. And Crow Daddy, I loved him anyway, because that's Zach McLarnon, who was in Westworld and was phenomenal in Westworld. And so to see him in this was really good. And I loved, he became a good secondary villain to her, because she is so charming.
Yeah.
And so, I think Rose the Hat should become, a new Hammer monster movie, or Universal monster. She's just
fantastic. Awesome. Yeah. I saw an interview with Stephen King and Zach, Mike, and I mentioned this earlier, and Mike looks at him and says, I'll do more Abra movies if you've got it in you. He's like prompting King to write more about Abra or the True Knot. And I'm like, bring it on, And Steve's like,
Yeah, there is that throwaway line near the end where she thinks you think we're the last, or I'm the last, or whatever. And, that's like, ding, 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 hit the sequel bell. But,
right.
But this cast is just, I like all of them. They have their unique qualities. I think costuming gave them unique character traits. Of course, I love the blonde girl. I thought she was great.
Jotted down. Did you do research on some of those lesser characters?
I didn't do so much research I just was trying to remember who they were.
Like the woman, I think it played Poppy from Hill House was the woman. She was somebody. She may have been the young Shelley Duvall.
No, she was one of the True Knots.
You're right. She was one of the True Knots. But the woman that played Abra's mother you would not recognize because she's in a movie that we'll probably do on next season called House of the Devil, which is a 70s homage movie.
Okay.
She's great too, I think.
And the guy
I
that
love
played
how he's using all the same actors over and over again and stuff.
well, yeah, I mean, the guy that played Chunk was
Mr. Dudley.
Mr. Dudley, who was
Mhm.
awesome
Yeah.
in Hill House. And of course, it took me like the second sentence where I was going, who is playing Jack Nicholson's character? Who's playing Jack? Oh, okay.
Elliot.
Very nice. Very nice work.
Yeah. Well, with that, I guess I could segue a little bit into casting. Most of these are going to be spot on because, Flanagan gets who he wants or uses past people. But when it came to casting Dan, there were some other choices.
Okay.
And the other than Ewan McGregor, the other people, a lot of them were British, which is kind of funny to me. One was Dan Stevens, who is a phenomenal actor. Yeah, he's fantastic.
Legion.
Chris Evans was another. Matt Smith, who played Doctor Who, I think.
Yeah, but see, both of them have such cred in other things. I think it would be hard for me to, I didn't see Obi-Wan in this, so it didn't bother me.
I was gonna say,
I didn't, even though he's got the series coming out now, thanks to Disney. But
yeah. And then lastly, Jeremy Renner. And out of all of those, I think Ewan McGregor or Dan Stevens would have been the top two.
That's who I would have picked. Yeah, definitely. I agree with you.
Yeah. I also have a note that, like the character he portrays in the film, Ewan McGregor was a recovering alcoholic. And this is one of the aspects that clinched him the role. So I thought that was
I mean,
cool.
I like, and I'm curious if Flanagan is as well, because it's a huge issue in both of the series that I've seen. It's a big deal, of course, in Hill House. One of the characters is an addict and has to deal with that addiction. In Bly Manor, the character is an alcoholic and is dealing with staying drunk for years at a time, kind of thing. And in this, Dan's a recovering alcoholic. So I'm curious why Flanagan has the predilection of having that.
So he's going to be the ghost/drunk director, or recovering director.
Yes.
Yeah, because he directs ghost movies and recovering movies. I don't know.
His new movie is called Ghost Recovery. Yes, that's what it'll be. Yeah. I don't know.
Oh, that's funny. You mentioned Rebecca Ferguson, who played Rose the Hat. I think she's phenomenal. I did not really know her from anything, though. You obviously did.
Oh, she's amazing in Greatest Showman. And you should watch that movie and appreciate it. For a new musical, not based on anything previous and not based on a fairy tale or anything else. It's a really strong musical.
Okay.
And I think you might like it, but her character in it is this sweet, genuine, nice person who turns out to be a royal bitch at the end of it, kind of thing. And I was going, oh, okay, she had fun doing this part. You could tell. I loved her interpretation. I mean, she's sexy, she's gentle, but she's just single focused and maniacal. And it's not that we never get the impression she's crazy. She does, to me, the best of any vampire film. She has that I'm in control. Don't you understand, you poor pathetic mortals? I'm the one here, kind of thing. You froze. You are a frozen in the woods Overlook kind of guy. You are so frozen. I'll be editing this part. And now you're back. And you're still frozen.
I went away completely. I mean, the whole screen went away.
You did. You went away, and then you froze for a long time.
I mean, the
You came
whole
back.
call went away for me. It had to reconnect the call. It was weird. I didn't see
was
you or
weird.
anything. It just
That was
okay.
weird.
We're back.
But
and
did you hear me talk about Greatest Showman?
Right. I heard that.
Yes.
Okay.
And she has, to me, some of the best of great cinematic, vampires. She's like, oh, you poor pitiful mortals, I'm so much better than you. You're not going to win. I'm the winner, kind of thing. And so good.
Right.
She's
I mean, the
really
whole
chilling.
time, that's the key for me, actually, is Near Dark and Interview with a Vampire, because these people do walk around like they've been.
Yeah, I had thought of Interview. That's a great
Yeah.
one. That's a good key.
Mhm.
Yeah, definitely. There's history to them.
Mhm.
And again, going back to casting, I think casting the giant from Twin Peaks, or whatever his name is, Carol. He's a German guy or a Swedish guy or something.
I didn't, there's so many of them, I didn't put it in my notes, but I know who you're talking about.
Carol Strucken, who plays Grandpa Flick.
Correct. And he's also a Flanagan veteran. He plays the Moonlight Man in Gerald's Game.
Yeah. But he's, I first knew him because he plays the giant in Twin Peaks. He gives all the premonitions and stuff. And
wasn't he Lurch in Addams Family?
Yeah, he was Lurch. And you can see why, based on his facial structure and everything else. I mean, he's very similar to who played classic Lurch. He was also Ruck.
Ted Cassidy.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah,
I do that off the top of my head.
That was great.
It's because of our Star Trek podcast.
But I thought he was really good. His character was good. I liked the little blonde girl. I thought she was great.
She's amazing. She is equally as good at her part, I think, as Rebecca Ferguson is at hers. They're both distinct villains, and they're very easily you could separate them. They're not carbon copies of each other, for lack of a better word.
No, and I really, really thought that she would somehow survive, and she would be the legacy if it was going to be a sequel or whatever. She would be the new Rose the Hat once she was defeated,
Snakebite Annie is her name.
But didn't happen.
Andy. Snakebite Andy. And she ends up killing the guy that helps Dan recover, who is Billy Freeman, played by Cliff Curtis.
Yeah, another good performance.
Yeah, and he is an actor that I knew from Fear the Walking Dead. He was the original lead father on that show before they killed him off in the 3rd season.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I liked we talked about all of them, I think, all of those.
Crow
I thought
Daddy was the other one.
Yeah, Crow Daddy plays Akichita in Westworld, and one of my favorite episodes is centric just to his character, which is really, really good. Probably the major best episode of season 2. But he's just a phenomenally powerful actor, I think. I love those shots of just his eyes in the rearview mirror, or the 2 shots when you see him in the front driving and Abra in the back, and just his expressions about, well, I better get used to it, and his, they didn't have to do more with his relationship of Rose the Hat. You could tell that they were so connected and so used to doing this sort of
You could
thing.
tell that she was connected to Grandpa Flick too.
Right.
Big time.
Right. But I like we've said, I like the recreator actors as well. I thought the guy that played Halloran was awesome. I thought he had the same vocal inflection. He had the same feel as Scatman in all of his scenes. Same thing with the girl that played Wendy and the girl that okay, the other thing I've got in casting standout is Violet is from Hill House as well, right?
Right. She's
She was
also
the-
in an insurance commercial that I see all the time.
Oh, okay.
The guy that played Halloran, I have to go a little bit further down because there's so many people in this movie.
Yes.
I don't. s-
Well,
Oh,
again,
That's
another
why I didn't
parallel
cut and
or-
paste all these into my notes, is because there's a
yeah, it's a huge cast.
yeah.
Um,
Jacob
I-
Tremblay was the boy that I mentioned that played the baseball kid.
yep.
I don't know if you knew this. Oh, Carl Lumley is the guy that played Halloran, and he normally has hair. I guess he shaved it or used a skin wig to get rid of it for the part. And I don't know if you knew this or not, but there's a rather famous person in the spectators watching the ball game, and he has a line. Do you know who it is?
And the guys that say watch number 19 or whatever.
Yes.
No.
That's Danny Lloyd from the original Shining.
Really?
Yeah.
I did not know that. That's cool.
Yeah, kind of balding, goatee. That's him.
Give him a little cameo there. That's great.
And also one of the True Knight was Flanagan's brother as well.
Oh yeah. Okay, that makes sense. That's cool.
Yeah.
But
I don't have like alternate casting or anything. That's pretty
I've also
much
got
it.
the guy that played Dr. John, the guy that essentially he's only in like 2 scenes. He kind of helps him he welcomes them to the AA group.
Yeah. You're talking oh God, what is his name? He's in Gerald's Game too.
That's Bruce Greenwald.
Bruce Greenwood.
I know him because he plays Pike in the new reboot of Star Trek.
Yeah, I saw that. He's in a lot of stuff. He is a very well working actor.
Yes.
You see him in a lot of stuff.
He's a very good, to me, the old school, like the old 70s and 80s character actors that you see.
And he
they
reminds
pop in.
me of Ullman.
Oh, yeah.
And his office is Ullman's office.
The office is Ullman's. It's a total recreation of that. Yeah. Even the way they're sitting and they're framed is the same too. I loved it. You know, he's that low shot straight across the desk with him there and the curtains in the back. And then when it cuts to Jack, he's that side angle in the chair kind of thing. I was going, okay, that's brilliant. That was just so good.
It's crazy. In the movie, Jack Nicholson is holding a Playgirl magazine before he goes in, and so is Dan in this, and it's the same issue.
When he's the caretaker at the hospice.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
It's crazy. It is.
That's
it is
cool.
The attention to detail is insane.
Well, the when they're getting ready to go to the Overlook, I have in my notes, I love the introduction of the Overlook. From that shot, like I said, up the mountain, but then we suddenly hear the theme again, and we're in that helicopter shot going toward the island and veering off, kind of thing. Except it's at night, not during the day, and that was one thing I loved, using the old Warner Brothers logo at the very beginning. That's a big key for me, and instantly on the downbeat of the music. I mean, if I had seen this in the theater, I probably would have just gone, yes, as loud as I could when that happened. Because, it's a black screen and all of a sudden, cut, wong, wong, wong,
right.
wong. I was going, yes, it's perfect.
I'm telling you, I went and saw it when it opened, and I went to the very first show that day. And I drove to a theater that I don't normally go to because they didn't have a morning performance. It was closer to me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I sat in the theater. I got there at like 10:30 and watched this thing.
Yeah.
They thought I was insane.
I think another big element of this movie we have to compliment is the music. The music all the way through is great. It's the same brothers that do his Haunting series. And it's well done. Using the heartbeat was brilliant and helps escalate that tension or calm you down at times. And it was really good. It became almost a motif. You could see suddenly the heart, it was like like when we talked about Jaws and the fact that they would do the fakes in Jaws when the scene you should have been scared, but you didn't hear the music. And so it turns out, no, that's not the shark. But then over here, it's a nice little safe scene that you don't suspect, but you're hearing the music. Oh, you're starting to get tense because you know it's there somewhere. He does that with the heartbeat in this. There's entire scenes with nothing, and then suddenly you start hearing the boom, 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 and you're going, oh no, no, something bad's happening.
Right. Yeah. And he does mimic shots like overhead shots, but instead of doing them in Colorado, they're in like Iowa when they're in a cornfield driving down the road and stuff, which I thought was kind of interesting.
Yeah, he's doing those big car shots of them, and I love when she's tracking them and it's showing the fast motion of all the caravan going through the roads. I thought that was really a very Kubrick inspired, but yet Flanagan version kind of thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, he thinks. I mean, we knew this already. He's a thinking director. Before I moved from casting, we neglected to mention Abra herself.
Yeah,
she was cast out of over 800 girls who auditioned. So,
I thought she did phenomenally well.
That
would have been a unique role to try to play because you have to be a young girl, but also be really pretty strong and confident at times. And she pulls off, I think, the confidence much better than she does the little girl or the fear part. But she also bonds really well with Ewan McGregor. They have good chemistry together, I thought.
Yeah, I like the scene where they meet on the park bench for the first time, and she talks to him in her head. And he says, let's use our outdoor voices or something.
Yeah, these are outside voices.
And he says, it doesn't look good, me being an older man with a girl. And she says, you're my Uncle Dan, or whatever. Right. She had this whole story ready to go.
Right. Now that was an element that he cut from the novel, right? Because in the novel, he really is her uncle. Right?
They do figure that out later, but I think that conversation still happens where he pretends to be related to her, or that's their story if it happens, if they have to.
Right. I just liked it better as a cover story than actually he had an illegitimate daughter years ago.
Yeah, apparently in the book somewhere, and I had forgotten this, Jack apparently had an affair with someone when he was married to Wendy, and that was the mother of her mother. Right. Yeah.
And I was like, I didn't need that. And I'm glad it wasn't in there. It was a good cut. That makes sense.
Yeah.
If we're ready to go there kind of thing, I thought you and I remember when we first heard about it, and I was going, how is he going to get away with Halloran? Because Halloran died in the movie, but didn't in the book. That was a big, huge deal, a big controversy. And I thought he did that brilliantly, like you said. But also, I like the fact that he took essentially the ending of The Shining and made it the ending of this movie.
Stephen King liked that too.
That worked really well.
I mean, let's talk about scenes again. Scenes keep sticking out to me. What do you think about the theatricality of when Rose is getting into Abra's head and she goes flying out over the city like Peter Pan?
I love that. I thought
Isn't
it was
it amazing?
Really well done. And I like the way he turns the set and has people go through the wall vertically to give it that very
otherworldly.
I mean, horizontally, to give it that otherworldly, weird kind of feel to it.
But then he has like her mind is a cathedral and it's this giant library, whereas Abra's mind is just in her room and it's all these drawers, and she ends up getting her hand stuck in one. I mean, I love the whole, what's the word I'm looking for? It's like, it's abstract visual.
But not so abstract, not like, let's say like Legion is, with the abstract getting so weird that it interferes with your emotional context with it. I thought it worked really well. And I thought the audience can immediately buy it and know it. Okay, that's what they mean. But he's also playing, a key for me is that's from Sherlock Holmes. That's from Arthur Conan Doyle, the whole cathedral of the mind thing. was from Sherlock Holmes and then was later used in Hannibal. That's how Hannibal, Starling ended up staying sane, was locking things away in different rooms in her mansion, in her mind, kind of thing. And that's kind of
the box thing.
The box thing, yeah. And I
Mm-hmm.
liked the fact that while she was trying to go through Abra's filing cabinets, Abra was going through her card catalog and everything. I thought that was great. It was really cool.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a trap the whole time. You didn't expect that. You expected Rose to dominate her. And I really like the fact that their first real encounter together, she set a trap for her, which was great.
Well, was that the first one or was the grocery store one?
The grocery store was the first encounter, but that's when she first knew about her. And that was awesome
great.
Too. Yeah, that was great.
So much good in this movie. When she goes flying across that thing, that glass.
Yeah.
But I do love when Abra turns around in her room and Rose is caught in her drawer with the skin coming off her hand. And when Abra turns, she's got the purple wig on and no face. And I was like, that's like that paperback version of The Shining where it had the little boy with no face.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I mean, that to me was a huge key. It's like an incestuous key. It's a key of itself. It was weird.
Yeah. I liked that. But I also thought it was very scary, horrific, all of that. But the key to me, of course, because I just saw, was Bly Manor. Because in Bly Manor, they have no eyes.
Right.
When she's lost herself and she's,
I had forgotten about that, but Bly Manor would be a good key for that.
But yeah, and I also have the key, right there while we're on it, of Gerald's game, because she has to rip the skin off her hand to get it out of the drawer. I was going, okay, another good hand effect for Mike Flanagan. Thank you so much for that. That worked.
Really.
But very cool storytelling, because later on when she finally gets pissed and I'm going to fight him and she sucks the last of the big steam that she's been saving forever, it just shows her hand and it starts to heal. And I was going, okay, that's great.
Yeah, I mean, it's any vampire key would work because they are essentially very similar. It's a very similar concept of vampirism.
Although again, a key for me, it
rejuvenates them. It keeps them immortal.
Yeah, and I love the fact that she says, "I didn't say immortal, I said live long." Who told you? Who told you immortal? Did someone say that? I didn't say that. I love that. But I also, big key I've got in my notes here is, again, outsider. In the battle, again, was unexpected in the resolution of it, because they're shooting at them from the hill, just like an outsider where the bad guy, it was
I'll
reversed.
give you that. I remember reading The Outsider and thinking this is a lot like Dr. Sleep when they're in that, when they meet in those woods and have that shootout.
But I love the way that was done. I love the whole, she totally faked you guys out and it's just a teddy bear and she's not even there, but then he caps it and does that twist at the end with the girl saying kill yourself, with Andy saying kill yourself, and his friend does, and I was like, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
And then, storytelling wise, goes right to Abra being kidnapped, dad's dead now, and then that whole, I loved, again, going back, Crow having that line about, it's been a weird day. You lost some friends. I lost some friends.
No, it's a lot of good people died today.
A lot of good people died today. Yeah. Some on your side, some on mine. Yeah, and I was going, that's so good.
I think a good reason this movie is strong is that we're finding ourselves talking equally, if not more so, of the plot that is not the Overlook.
Oh yeah.
Where the Overlook, I mean, that's like the icing on the cake at the end. When they go there, you're like, wow, this is awesome.
And again, I loved his plotting and his visuals to that. When Abra is standing up to her and suddenly you're seeing the box in the background close in on her, and yet it doesn't work. And then you have the other, you have the continuing battle. You think she's got the upper hand. I mean, she's even got her finger in his femoral artery. So we know Danny probably isn't going to make it, but
right.
And she goes, "What are all those boxes?" Da, da, da. And he opens them all up. I was going, yes, I was waiting for this. It was so good. It was so good. And he goes, and they're hungry. Yeah. Loved it.
I keep going back to scenes, but another scene I love is the fact that they have to go get the baseball glove. She has to touch the baseball glove to figure out what's going on and where they're at.
Yeah, and I think
because Barry the Chunk had it on his hand,
and that ties him and his friend together so strongly. That I think is great. And I think it's a very to me probably because I watch CSI all the time and Criminal Minds and all those. That was the most realistic grave digging scene I've seen. Because they cannot handle the decomp smell at all. They don't like it, and it's gagging. And it's great.
He runs away and is like throwing up as he's running.
Yeah. Just get away fast enough. Can't do it. Yeah.
Right.
But yeah, and it's a fitting kind of last image of that horrific scene with the mutilation. Mutilation without showing anything. It's all just in the way it's shot and the way it's done and the fact that she has a knife and the fact that there's blood squirting on his face and all that.
Well, the mutilation of the boy?
Yeah.
Okay. I lost you there for a second. I wasn't sure which mutilation you were talking about. Yeah. He doesn't show much of it. Actually, the one with Dan is more visceral when she's sticking her thumb.
Oh yeah.
In his leg.
Much more.
Yeah. Going to awards, if we can ever get out of scenes, because I love this movie so much. I started to tell you, well, I'll do this at the end when we round it up, but it was a Bram Stoker nominee for Best Screenplay. It was a Chainsaw winner, Fangoria, that is, for actress, Rebecca Ferguson. It was nominated for actor, movie, director, screenplay, cinematography, editing, score, and FX.
Wow.
But that's Fangoria, got to put it in a little perspective. It's not an Oscar movie. It should have been, but it's not.
Yeah.
And then South African Horror Fest gave it film, actor, director, and screenplay. So South Africa appreciates it.
Yeah. I'm sure it probably won a BAFTA too, because they appreciate good horror.
Yeah.
But yeah.
But if you want to jump over into keys, I guess it's probably about time. Yeah. And there are several.
We've mentioned a lot already. I guess my two biggest ones are King related that I got. And that says a lot about me because I do not read him as voraciously as you or whatever. But Halloran mentions Tet, which is Dark Tower, right?
He mentions Ka.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
Which is Dark Tower. And there's something, and I don't know what it's from, but I know it's something. There's something about 19 because they say lucky 19. I don't know if the little kid in Dark Tower Drawing of the Three is 19 or something.
No, 19 shows up all the time in Stephen King novels. It's like his favorite number. Okay. And especially the Dark Tower. So 19 does play into the Dark Tower mythos. I also, other than Halloran saying Ka is a wheel, Doc, that's his exact line. He's talking about fate or whatever being a wheel. There is the name of the abandoned industry where they murder the boy is Lemmerk Industries, and that plays into the Dark Tower books as well.
Yeah.
So there's a couple, like 2 or 3 Dark Tower references in there for sure.
Now, are those in the novel or did Flanagan add those?
I can't remember. I read this book almost the day it came out. So it's been a minute.
Yeah.
Yeah. This book's at least 5 or 7 years old.
Okay.
Yeah. So it's been a while. And we'll go ahead and skip this because we mentioned the vampire movies Near Dark. I did want to say this. When we were talking about Interview with the Vampire, the scene that reminds me the most of Interview with the Vampire is when Grandpa Flick dies and they all jump on him.
Oh,
like
yeah.
wolves.
Like
That reminded me so much of that scene with Armand in the Theater of the Vampires when they all jump on the woman at the end.
Totally see that. Yeah, it was primal. It was a very primal sort of moment.
Yeah, they eat their own.
Yeah.
Basically, what's left.
Well, you got to do that, you know.
Do you want to go next? Do you have another?
I just have a couple of other ones. I've got the, and this is like, again, some of these keys are like homages because it's a sequel, but the whole scene with Jack and Danny at the Overlook in the bar is so well done as a key to The Shining, but also as story development for both of them. I like the fact that Jack doesn't really remember, kind of like Grady doesn't really remember.
Exactly.
You know, and I like the fact that Danny doesn't take the drink, that he does stay strong, and even though he's tempted and everything else, and he actually tells him, this is what I remember. This was your brand, you know, da, 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 and all the stuff that he remembers about his dad. That was really good, really good.
Another thing Flanagan does, if you're going to go to the book or the movie, actually the book, is he lifts lines that were not used in the Kubrick version and puts them in this movie. Like when he's
medicine,
bashing that guy in the head with the pool ball, he's going, take your medicine, take your medicine.
Oh yeah.
And when he's chasing Abra in the hall with the axe, he's doing it too.
Which was what, you know, I mean, we talked about it when we did The Shining. You know, I was really afraid that he was going to, because, you know, essentially, well, we spoiled everything else. You know, Dan is taken over at the end of this, like Jack was.
Yeah, he becomes
in
possessed.
The Shining. Mm-hmm. But it's more like the book to me than the movie. The movie was, I felt like it was Jack had slipped and was, you know, crazy, as opposed to, you know, even the glassy eye gives him the possession. But I was really, especially when he said, come and take your medicine, Abra, and all that kind of stuff, I was really thinking, oh, he's going to bash his face off, which is that scary scene I couldn't take from the book. Yeah. I was going, oh my God, he's going to bash his face off. And
that would have been really cool had they done that, but I'm sure Ewan wouldn't have wanted it.
Yeah, probably not.
It would have been a lot more time in the makeup chair. But I do like how they went from back and forth with that eye, that hazy eye.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like it goes away and he's okay. And as soon as she starts to leave, it starts coming back. And you're like, get out of there.
Yeah, get out. Yeah.
Yeah. Yep. So anyway, that was a little homage to The Shining book. So there's going to be obviously a lot of internal keys with Stephen King. Here's another one. When Rose describes Snakebite Andy's power as pusher, that's what he referred to with Charlie McGee's father and Firestarter, as being able to push people psychically.
Mm-hmm.
Remember, Charlie was the Firestarter. Her dad could push people. I can't think of his character's name, but David Keith played him in the movie.
And I've got the keys. Just got key pusher because I think there's a couple of films that use that.
There's an X-Files episode.
There's an X-Files that uses a pusher. That's what I was going to mention.
It's
but you took it from me. So you just go ahead. Yeah.
Sorry.
No, that was good.
I didn't know if you were going to get to it or not.
No, that was yep.
Another Stephen King reference. Dan says there are more people who stand.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
As a reference to The Stand.
And I liked having him do that denouement as the ghost, kind of still talking to her, still there, like Halloran was for him.
Exactly. It's
perfect balance.
Unity. Exactly.
Good storytelling. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. This one I did not know as much, but I went ahead and copied and pasted it. But it's been a long time since I read Dreamcatcher, and I didn't like the movie that much. But there's a similar premise of storing memories in a warehouse in that as well.
Yep.
So
yeah,
that's another
I vaguely
Stephen
remember
King.
that. I did not like that book at all. I didn't see the movie, but I did not like that novel.
I like the shit weasel. That to me was awesome.
I'm sure you did.
I mean, that was just horrific, but I don't remember liking the overall movie. That was like just a good book. That was a good part of a otherwise long book. Apparently there are also memory mind palaces in, like you said, Sherlock, and apparently in Hannibal, the series.
Yes. Yeah,
okay.
I said Hannibal.
I've not seen that.
Well, Hannibal the novel. Like I said, that's how Clarice Starling basically holds on to her sanity while Hannibal is torturing her mentally messing with her. She locks away herself in different rooms in the mansion.
It's been a minute since I read that book too, but I did read that book. Okay.
Yeah. It's actually been an exercise that I've heard people use, to help people over trauma and things like that. You can file away memories in a certain way that they're easy to either access easily or, lock away.
Right.
So,
you might have this one. I don't know, but Star Wars.
What, because of Obi-Wan?
Well, Obi-Wan was a ghostly mentor, and Halloran is now a ghostly mentor to Dan.
Okay, you totally got me on that one, and I had not seen that. That's good. I did not see that at all.
And if you want to do another Ewan McGregor movie, in Trainspotting, he's kind of haunted by a dead baby, and there's a dead baby in this one that comes back and scares him.
Well, and they actually turn the set sideways, and he kind of falls through things in that as well. So that's a good one.
Yeah,
that's a good one for the heroin and heroin scene. By the way, I have that in my notes. I like the art direction as well. I like the 80s scenes look 80s in all of the art direction. It works really well. The couch, the television, all that works. And I also like the contemporary stuff. I loved his attic apartment. That was a really cool room.
With the chalkboard wall.
Yeah. And red rum.
Yeah. I mentioned earlier that Stephen King got the idea for this novel while driving back and forth from Maine to Florida. But another reason he got the idea is he actually read a news story about a cat that knew when people were going to die in an old folks' home. And that's where the title of this movie comes from. Dr. Sleep. He becomes their peacemaker as they're dying or whatever Dan does. That becomes kind of like his unofficial occupation.
And what a great way to use your shine, your gift, to actually help people. Ghosts are real. And I like the fact that they don't belabor it. They don't make a big deal about it, but it's there and it's there. And then later on, he actually kind of justifies it by saying people do go on. I thought that was a great line in reference to it. You reminded me of one. Oh, there was a couple of shots in that were, for me, the key was Bubba Hotep, because it's showing that long hallway with the cat going down it and everything. And I was going, there's going to be a mummy at the end of it, kind of thing.
Oh, that's a seasonal key.
And a very... and using the cat as like not the bringer of death, but the cat is there to comfort at the time of death. Cat picks. I loved it when he said, "That's the wrong room." Da 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 da, and he goes in there and there's Halloran. That was a great scene. That was well done.
Yeah, that's a good scene. It is. What I was going to get to though with that cat is that apparently his name is Azzy, which is short for Azrael, the angel of death.
Angel of Death. Yeah.
I'm not sure what that's from. Is that from the Bible?
Yes.
I don't know.
Well, from
I,
Paradise
I
Lost.
found actually, you're right. It could be. You know what? I'll do more research on that before I do the show notes because I just copied and pasted that. And also, and we wouldn't know this. I should, but I don't. As he's approaching the goal room, the mirror hanging outside the hallway is the mirror from the movie Oculus, the haunted mirror movie.
Oh, I didn't know that. That's kind of a cool Easter egg.
Yeah.
That's nice.
Mhm.
I had a question and now I've forgotten it. You
Well,
go ahead.
I've got a
Go
couple
more
other good
kids.
ones too. I just realized.
Yeah, go with them.
Well, Moby Dick. They mentioned Moby Dick a couple of times about Abra being the white whale that she is going after. Rose the Hat, that is.
I never saw that.
Yeah,
I did have a
is the white whale.
I did have a question, or just a
Maybe
question
it
for
was
you.
in the director's cut. Maybe it wasn't in your cut.
I don't remember any references to Moby Dick.
Oh yeah, they even say white whale.
Ah.
Oh, so you
I do think no,
okay.
I do remember she's a white whale, but I got the impression of there'd be blubber for lots of years, off of her.
Mm-hmm.
Sort of thing. She's so
before we
strong.
move away, before we go to closing, I wanted to talk a little bit about the differences because I don't. Well, anyway, you were
Like
saying,
what? No, go ahead.
Well, let me do my last key first.
Yeah, do your last key.
The last,
and then I have
key,
a question for you.
I'm really kind of wondering why you didn't catch, but it's the scene where Rose gets Violet is lifted almost visually the same from Frankenstein.
Oh yeah, I had that
With
as
them
my
by the
first key.
water.
I was just
And
they're
messing with flowers. They're just not throwing them in the water.
just not throwing them in the water. But yeah, and it ends the same way, except they all approach her as opposed to just it cuts after he touches her. Yeah.
All of a sudden there's one there and then there's another and oh man, that's creepy.
It was creepy. And he cuts to that overhead shot as they all do the descent again on her. It was really good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what are you going to ask me?
I was going to ask you, do you think it's somewhat cliche or weird, or did it take you out of it that her name is Abra and she's magic, like abracadabra?
No, and Stephen King swears he didn't really make the connection until after he had already started writing it.
That's a crock of crap. What? How could you not? That. Where does the name Abra come from?
Who else is named Abra or Abra?
Ever.
For sure.
Ever. Yeah.
Maybe a rabbit.
Yeah. I mean, I started to think, halfway through, I was thinking, okay, is he going for very mundane, very cliche kind of names? Like all of them are named like a nickname based on an affectation. The Chunk is the big fat guy. Grandpa Flick is old. Rose the Hat, she has the hat, which also I thought was going to do something. I thought there was good, as she was so defensive of that hat. I thought maybe that's where her magic is or something. I didn't know. I don't know. But
they do all wear like trophies from their victims.
Oh, okay. I didn't notice that. Didn't catch that. Yeah. But yeah,
well, I don't think you're supposed to. I think it's just kind of known, like maybe in the book, but not necessarily in the movie.
So was he doing that? I thought, was he doing that with other characters? Was he doing that with Abra because she's the magic one?
Yeah, that makes sense.
But it didn't pan out. So it was,
which is a good segue to what I had thought to bring up, which is I watched the director's cut because I had seen the original and I couldn't really tell you a lot that was in the director's cut that I don't remember from the original, with the exception of a little bit more of Abra as a child and her abilities. Like, I'm not sure if that spoon scene was in there. I couldn't remember that.
Yeah, that's her introduction. Her introduction is her birthday party.
But I'm talking about in the director's. Oh, that's right. So you saw it. And then the other scene that I know I saw that you didn't see is they go into the red bathroom at the Overlook.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay,
It's
that would be
very
cool.
short, but he spills Dan's drink. He knocks it and it goes on his coat. And he says, let me take you in here and clean you up. And they have the whole scene where Grady is cleaning Jack, only it's Dan.
Oh, really? That would have been interesting. I would love to have seen the shot structure there too, because I'm sure it was similar.
It was very similar. He was even standing the same way where he kind of leaned over awkwardly. But
well, and we talked about it in the Shining podcast, which, by the way, if you guys haven't listened to, go back and listen to. But that's one of my favorite scenes in that movie is that whole Mr. Grady. I know all, and that whole I corrected them. It's just a great scene. So what would
other than that, I'm not really sure what's different. And it's only because I've seen one once and the other once, and they were spaced a year apart, and I just don't know.
I may try to watch the director's in, because seeing the original, I may know the additions, obviously.
Well, yeah, because you've seen it recently.
Yeah. But I think you picked the winner. I think this was a great film. I think this was it was a great watch, and hopefully will be remembered as a classic, because it's really unique and different and good.
Yeah, and in closing, I was going to say this, which might kind of blow you away. I don't know if it will or not. I think this is the best sequel I've ever seen, and it's probably in my top 10 movies of all time. I fucking love this movie. I think this movie is fantastic. And I don't even think The Shining is in my top 10 movies.
Really? Okay.
It might be. It's close. It's in the top 20. But
I probably wouldn't go to those two praise points that you did, but it is really, really good.
Yeah.
I think it should be recognized and go down as the best hybrid sequel ever. To be able to take both, like we said, both of these mediums, a book and a movie that were both so popular but so diversely different, and marry them together in a sequel that works and pays homage and reverence to both, is really phenomenal. And I can't remember it ever being done before.
Well, and not only pays homage to both, but also offers the not struggling, but the irate author of the original catharsis. I mean, he basically gives him more with this movie to heal that animosity between Stephen King and Kubrick. I mean, that's a whole other level.
Definitely.
So I don't know. It blows me away. And when I watched it again the other day, I was like, this movie's really long, but it's really, really good. I was just so into it. And you were talking about Ewan McGregor. I was like, he sounds like Jack Nicholson. When he's talking, his voice reminded me of the Jack Nicholson inflect at times.
Yeah, he's got some of that inflect. They've obviously done a lot of research on it, and done a good job of it.
Yeah, I mean, I thought he may have done better than Henry Thomas. So.
Oh yeah.
But. Okay, well, that's all I have for this movie, but I'm glad.
Me too. You guys, if you have not seen Dr. Sleep, I cannot believe you sat through this entire thing, but go watch it again and appreciate it for, Tim's in trouble. And we would love to hear from you guys. We'd appreciate it if you would give us a like, give us a comment, follow us on YouTube, and follow us on.
Take your medicine.
And take your medicine, always. Tim, it's been a pleasure, my friend.
Yeah, I've enjoyed it.
All right. Talk to you next time.
All right. Bye.
Bye.
You can't start the car. Johnny has the keys.